we're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's April 2nd here in Seoul. I'm Shin, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Im Sang-hyuk.
Happy Tuesday.
Good morning. And Brooke Prince.
Hello, happy to be here.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. A week after popular delivery app service Coupang Eats decided to introduce a free delivery service for its paid subscribers, other app competitors have rolled out similar offers. That includes 배달민족, which has maintained its title as the #1 delivery app service in the country. On Monday, the app said it would ease the burden of delivery costs for consumers who use its thrifty service, which is when riders deliver a batch of orders to different customers living in a similar route. The thrifty delivery service option is already a bit cheaper, but from this month, Baemin will change the service to be free of charge. This policy will first take effect in the Greater Seoul area. Moving on, CNN has selected 35 of the world's most delicious dumplings, and Korean-style kimchi dumplings proudly made it on the list. CNN said Korean kimchi dumplings are often folded in a circular shape, which is a technique rarely found in Chinese cuisine. CNN went further to compare Korea's dumplings from those of China and Japan, saying that the ones here look more like manti in Central Asia. And recently, a survey asked some 1,000 company workers in Korea to give their own ideas as to how the country should deal with the lowest birth rate in the world. 3 out of 10 answered ensuring adequate childcare leave and time, particularly allowing automatic childcare and maternity leave, which is when workers with a newborn child do not need to register for leave separately. The second most popular idea was reducing working hours. And with the general election coming up, different political parties are closely monitoring related survey results from the public. That's why a majority of them have opted for a 4-day work week or 4.5 work week as one of their pledges. Now, here at the studio, what do you guys think lawmakers should consider when trying to boost birth rates in the country, given that South Korea does have the world's lowest birth rate? I mean, recently we saw the average number of expected babies for a woman during her reproductive life fall from 0.78 to 0.72 last year. So what do you think?
The thing is, the low birth rate is not something that happened overnight, so it's not something that's going to be resolved overnight, right? And I mean, I am a woman in her 30s who is not married and has not had a child yet, so I think I can speak on the subject. And for me personally, my reasoning is just that I'm so focused on my career. And I think that a lot of women are in the same boat where they feel too busy to bring a child into the world. So there's been kind of a societal shift in that way, but I think there's also been an economic shift where we're seeing very high inflation rates, the housing prices are soaring, and so a lot of young couples just do not feel like they can handle the financial responsibility of a child on top of all of that. So I think what the government needs to do is to continue to try to make it easier to ease that financial burden of starting a family. And one thing I heard that they're trying to develop is a new high-speed train that will reduce commuting times between the outer areas of Seoul into the inner city. And I think that will help a lot because obviously in those areas, housing is a lot cheaper. So hopefully that will encourage more people to move there and start families. But again, it's going to be a very slow process, I think.
And that's a great point, Brooke, because currently the government does have many birth boost rate policies that are trying to help couples out there by handing out cash subsidies. But I do think if they focus on what happens after they have the child, whether it be maternity leave or better infrastructure at companies, transport options, housing options, and especially education, I do think young couples would be open to the idea of actually thinking of raising a child here. But Sang-hyuk, what are your options? What are your opinions on this matter?
Well, for this matter, I recently came across a very interesting article that shed a new light to this issue. So according to this article, it says that right now is actually the transition period, saying that the birth rate will rebound after our generation, once the generation Alpha that was born after 2010 steps in. So I'm not sure whether this is a good news for us, the MZs, but in a matter of time, I somehow have a feeling that low birth issues will be resolved naturally. And apart from that, MZers these days are just unwilling to sacrifice themselves to marry and have kids. So Brooke mentioned about the conditional aspects of reducing resolving the birth rate issues. But from my point of view, I think we have to approach this in a realistic way. For example, implementing policies that can accommodate more foreign immigrants so that we can handle the low labor shortages right now here in Korea.
I see. So acknowledging that we are facing a demographic crisis
Right.
and opting for different options out there, whether that be introducing more foreign immigrants and allowing them to want to come here. Now, let's switch gears to our main topic now. Last month, the Wall Street Journal published an article on a hobby that's shared by a growing number of South Koreans. To find out what that is, take a listen to my AI voice.
It's no surprise that South Korea has one of the longest working hours in the world. The Wall Street Journal believes because Koreans are so overworked, they're turning to a unique hobby. That's unwinding by raising a pet rock. In an article published last month, the Wall Street Journal said more Koreans are raising small stones like pets, as if they were taking care of an actual dog or cat. It explained that a pet stone gives some Koreans peace of mind and time to space out their thoughts after a long, hard day of work.
You heard my AI voice correctly, a pet rock, not a pet dog or cat. We're talking about pet rocks. And here's a two-sentence summary of why the Wall Street Journal thinks we're seeing this trend. Take a look at the screen. The article reads, Koreans are enduring the longest working hours among industrialized countries, and that's why they're raising stones in search of the unchanging stillness. Now, Sang-hyuk, there are many other reasons why the Wall Street Journal thinks that a lot of Koreans, especially young ones, are raising a pet stone. So why don't you walk us through them?
Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but from my point of view, I couldn't actually understand why anyone would raise pet stones. But according to the interviewees from the Wall Street Journal, they say that these pet stones make you feel really comfortable. Of course, they did acknowledge that pet stones would not be able to understand what they say, but they say that these pet stones are like the worry dolls where you can just pour out your emotions and share your griefs. Now, surprisingly, K-pop idol groups like 17 or Tomorrow by Together have also revealed that they are raising pet stones, and I think this has also contributed to the rising trend of pet stones in Korea. Now, the sales of pet stones have gone up as well. So according to one online vendor of pet stones, the number of orders reached up to 200 these days.
Wow.
Now, and pet stones actually first originated in the United States back in the late 1970s. It was the name of under the pet rock you mentioned, and the trend was only temporary back then, and it soon died out. But after half a century, you can see that it is gaining popularity once again here in Korea.
And it's not just pet stones. The article also pointed out to how we're seeing many other young Koreans really opt for unique hobbies out there. For instance, they talked about the spacing out hobby to the extent that you just space out, and we're seeing some local governments hold spacing out contests that even a celebrity here in Korea participated to, which garnered a lot of attention. And as we mentioned in one of our episodes last year, there's this funeral experience where you can trial out your own death by writing a will and actually stepping inside a coffin. But what are some other unique hobbies that seem to be trending among our generation these days?
Well, one unique hobby that is growing in popularity here in Korea is bonsai, which literally translates to planting a tree in a small container. And this was usually seen as a hobby mainly for the older generations, but these days it has become a hot trending topic amongst the MZ generation as well, particularly as celebrities like RM of BTS are proudly posting their plant collections online. And evidence of the newfound popularity of bonsai can be seen all over the country. There have been pop-up stores all over Seoul, and we're seeing an influx of visitors to the Seocho Bonsai Museum. A lot of the vendors are saying that most of their customers now are actually made up of young people. And I think the reason why can be traced back to what we talked about earlier, the working hours here in Korea. There is very little work-life balance. So it's no wonder in a sort of pressure cooker-like society like Korea, people are turning to nature to find a sort of sense of calm and peace in the storm. Now, I wish I could try the bonsai hobby myself, but I do not have a pet stone. I have a pet cat who really enjoys eating plants, so that hobby unfortunately is not for me, but I wish everyone well who is enjoying it.
Right, and apart from bonsai, then what are other unique hobbies that our generation is opting for these days?
Well, the millennials and Gen Zs are also into active sports these days, and right now marathon is catching everyone's attention from all generations, and many MZers are participating in marathon rallies these days. Now, if you go on to social media, you can often see posts saying that we are recruiting new members for our jogging crew. Now, you can see here that many millennials and Gen Zs are willing to participate in this private club that goes on a marathon on nearby Han River. And as you can see about the hobbies that we have talked about so far, I think it's not only for the MZers, but it has somewhat similarity with the hobbies of the older generation. So for example, the pet stone can also be comparable to collecting aqua stones by the elderlies back in the days. And also when it comes to marathons, to my point of view, I think this was actually for the ajasis in Korea, the mid-aged man. But now you can see that the millennials and Gen Zs are enjoying this trend. So you can see here again that these kind of hobbies are like fashion. They repeat after generation after generation.
They come and go, and there are definitely some similarities between what types of generations have different hobbies. Though they may seem different, there actually are a lot of commonalities there.
That's true.
Then I would like to ask, what type of hobbies, any unique ones that you guys personally enjoy or any of your friends are enjoying at the moment?
Well, to be honest, my hobby is kind of dull, so it's just the regular things, watching YouTube and hanging out with my friends on the weekend. But I do have friends who enjoy a really special and unique hobby. There's one of my friends who loves to go on a trip overseas, but it's not just a typical trip that you can think. It's actually going on a trip onto the remote places of the earth. So he went to the outback areas in Australia, and he has been to the wide plains in Mongolia. Now, it's different from going trip on a 5-star luxurious hotel. He prefers to go to this travel on a very short and tight shoestring budget.
What an adventure.
Which I don't understand. So we often fight together when we go to trips together. So, but there's also another friend who enjoys going to the animal shelter, the dog shelter, the abandoned dog shelter. So he visits there every weekend, and he cleans up the mess, feeds the baby dogs, and he plays and cuddles with the dogs.
Aww. That's so sweet.
Yeah, it's some kind of volunteering, but he mentioned that it's really rewarding and fruitful. So if he can reduce his stress and if he feels rewarding, then I think we can consider this as a new type of hobby.
I completely agree. I think community service is definitely an extension of one's hobby. What about you, Brooke? Do you have any unique ones out there?
Well, I have two hobbies that I'd like to talk about today because I was introduced to them both after coming to Korea. The first one is going to noraebang, which is karaoke, and I found out very quickly that karaoke is extremely important to the Korean culture. It's kind of like an icebreaker activity for coworkers or new friends, and a lot of people here actually go to noraebang by themselves just to practice and build up a nice long list of songs that they feel confident singing, because that's how crucial it is. And so as someone who has always loved to sing, that's one of my favorite hobbies. And my other hobby has to do with another type of bang here in Korea. It is the PC bang, which is a game where you go to play video games, and it's, you know, even saying that sounds funny to me because as a kid, my brothers would always beat me at video games. I never had much of an interest, but once I came to Korea, I was introduced to League of Legends, and as you know, that's not just a game here. It's like a whole phenomenon. It's a world in and of itself. So I've been to several events. I've even cosplayed as characters from the game. It's just a lot of fun for me. So my hobbies are noraebang and PC bang. And as for a unique hobby of one of my friends, she's actually a mermaid.
Wow.
Yeah, so she did professional mermaiding before, and she still does underwater modeling now, where she puts on the whole mermaid tail, and it's actually much harder than people think to, you know, hold your breath and look beautiful as a mermaid under the water. So that's a really unique hobby that I know about.
You know what? I think I'm similar with you, Sang-hyuk, because my list of hobbies are quite dull compared to mermaiding and cosplaying for different esports tournaments. But as you can see, like our generation seems to have a wide array of hobbies. And to analyze the reason why we're seeing this trend, we're going to include a psychology expert in our talks. Stay tuned for our live interview. To find out why our generation is looking for unique hobbies like raising a pet stone or even sharing the same hobbies as their grandparents or parents by raising plants, we're going to include a psychology expert in our talks. Let's hear about the mindset and thought processes of millennials and Gen Zers by talking to Ian Jung, an intern counselor at UNMA Psychological and Counseling Services in Seoul. Welcome, Ian Jung.
Hello.
All right, so we've had a heated discussion as to the various unique hobbies that our generation seems to be enjoying these days. But why do you think, speaking from a psychological expert's view, why are we seeing such a trend?
Well, there are several psychological factors at play when it comes to the pursuit of unique hobbies. Engaging in such activities allow individuals to express their personality, values, and interests in a manner that resonates authentically with them. It serves as a means of establishing a deeper connection with oneself, providing a space to focus on one's true self in an increasingly digital and interconnected world.
Okay, Eunjung, so we've already mentioned a wide array of hobbies that millennials and Gen Z are trying to out for these days. Then from your perspective, do you think there's a common trait among these hobbies, something that has to do with our state of mind?
I think so. These hobbies, I think they offer a long-term self-focused engagement. So instead of seeking a quick burst of pleasure, individuals are motivated by instinct factors, finding deep satisfaction and enjoyment in the activities themselves, rather than external rewards or validation. And moreover, these hobbies often incorporate elements of mindfulness, creativity, and self-connection, providing a rich and meaningful experience.
Thank you so much for your insights. I have one last question for you. What do you think our generation is trying to achieve through having such hobbies?
It seems like our generation is striving to meet a multitude of needs and desires through these hobbies. Firstly, there's a desire to connect with oneself, to find a deeper sense of purpose and meaning in life. Additionally, these activities serve as effective tools for managing stress and coping with life challenges. Take, for instance, the trend of raising a pet rock, which represents a grounding technique known as grounding object, often utilizing counseling to alleviate anxiety by staying present and creating a sense of safety. Moreover, these unique hobbies provide outlets for self-expression, allowing individuals to authentically showcase their interests and values.
I see. And Eunjung, before I let you go, I have one more question. Some of my friends actually don't have any hobbies, and they're actually looking at their friends and being like, why can't I have a unique hobby or something entertaining in my life? Any advice you would like to give them as a mental health expert? Do we really need a hobby? And if so, how can we better try them out?
I guess it really depends on the person. But to effectively manage and navigate hobbies, I think self-awareness and mindfulness are the keys. This entails paying close attention to the motivation, emotions, and needs surrounding the hobbies. So making conscious choices about how we engage with them. I think that's the key to find the hobby for oneself.
And in order for us to boost self-awareness, I guess it would be helpful for us to talk to our friends and look on the internet as to what type of hobbies there are so we can really explore our options. Thank you so much, Eunjung. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you.
Great. And we asked our global viewers to share their own hobbies as well. If you take a look at the screen, you can find out what 3 of them had to say. Let's start with Ramsey. Ramsey said, one of my hobbies is baking. I started baking before because I want a creative outlet and to experiment with different cake flavors. Years later, I even started selling my baked cakes as a side hustle. Chris said, my special hobby is writing about music. I love doing it on a regular basis, and I have 2 websites where I write about music. Jiaoyi, he said, I go out bowling once a week, even though I'm not good at it. It can be fun trying to knock down all the pins with the bowling ball. Now, thank you for all our viewers who shared what their hobbies are. We'd like to now end the discussion by sharing how we can better enjoy our current hobbies or even start new ones.
Okay, so overall throughout today's episode, we mostly focused on unique hobbies, but like Eunjung mentioned, as long as your hobby can relieve your stress and motivate you to start a new beginning, I think your hobby is okay if it isn't that special, like watching YouTube on the weekends and staying inside the blanket for all day. Because there are often tragic cases, especially among celebrities, of taking drugs or going to red light districts to relieve their stress. Now, this is definitely not a healthy way to relieve your stress. So if your hobby is like taking a stroll around the neighborhood like for 15 minutes, and if you can relieve your stress, then that is perfectly okay.
Exactly. I just hope that anyone who watches our episode today doesn't feel the burden or the stress to find a new unique hobby as to raising your own pet stone, spacing out, or bonsai. I think whatever makes you happy and makes you relieve your stress is the way to go. Brooke, what's your advice on this?
Right, I totally agree. I don't think it has to be a hobby that's particularly out there, as long as it brings you joy, because I really think when you're in the middle of a long work day and you have one thing that you're just looking forward to doing when you get home, it can really make all the difference. I think a lot of people get stuck in the cycle of work, sleep, rinse, repeat, which is just not healthy. So as long as your hobby isn't hurting anyone, then I think you should feel free to do whatever hobby you want. Don't let anyone shame you for it. You know, a lot of people will say, oh, video games, they're so unproductive, or a pet rock is so silly, but don't listen to that. As long as it makes you happy, that's what matters.
And that's what our generation is for, and what NewsGen has been saying all the time. You do you, because as long as you do whatever makes you happy, I think that's the way to go, under the condition that it's not illicit and you're not hurting anyone.
Right.
And hopefully today's episode gave you a few ideas as to what type of new hobbies you can navigate. In the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Im Sang-yeop
Thanks for having me.
and Brooke Prince.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.